So at this point in my life, I'm very, very focused. I'm on a journey called Confident Confidence. I've been at places where I haven't had the most confidence. I feel like I didn't measure up to whatever the standard was of that industry or that entity I was a part of. But I've gotten to a place now, getting close to 50, and I'm not really interested in measuring up. I'm interested in being the measure that people have to measure up to. Confident confidence is where I'm headed, it's what I am, and it's what I intend to take and share with the world. You can do whatever you want, you can be whoever you want, you can accomplish whatever you want. All you need is confident confidence. This is the journey. Come along.
You won't see it on the 6 o'clock news. It's not waiting in the mail. I trust you. I woke up and my whole world changed. You're the kind of love that gives me faith. And I believe.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Building Bridges with Tyrus, where we are connecting ministry and marketplace. I am so blessed today to have in the studio with me live the one and only Pastor Phillip Mitchell. Let me tell you, this guy has a heart for the Lord. He has a heart for God's people. He has a heart to see people win in God so they can spend eternity with God. And I'm so happy because God gives us people that not only think like us, but we have the same heart. And today's conversation, you're in for a treat, because I know you're there and you see me interview folks, and we're talking about books and we're talking about projects. But today, Pastor Phil and I, we're really going to have a heart conversation. We're going to talk about some matters of the heart. Yeah. Let me give you a little bit of backstory on Pastor Phil, all right? He's a husband, beautiful wife. He's a father, lovely kids. I promise you. When you start connecting with him, you'll see his whole family on his social media. A pastor of Victory Church Atlanta, a growing, thriving church of millennials, and they are taking the city by storm. All right, he's a philanthropist. He's a nonprofit outreach organization owner. What I love about Pastor Phil, his organization partners with over 30 other organizations to blanket the city with love and hope. This guy is loaded with love, compassion, and passion. Please help me welcome my guest today, Pastor Phillip Mitchell.
Man.
Pastor, I'm happy you're here, man.
Thank you for having me, brother.
I am so happy you're here, Pastor.
It's an honor to be here with you.
I'm honored to be with you.
I appreciate this, man. Congratulations on your show.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Pastor.
Happy to see where God has brought you.
Man, I think we have the same sentiment towards each other.
Yeah.
To see where the Lord has brought us from, all the way from New York.
Yep.
Queens, New York, the both of us.
Queens, New York.
In Queens, New York.
Yeah.
Me going to 192, junior high school.
192.
Graduating from Edison High School.
I graduated from Andrew Jackson, and they shut it down.
Yes.
Remember?
You ended the story.
Yeah, they shut it down. They shut it down.
You ended the story. Pastor Phil, the Lord has been kind to us.
Yes.
He's been kind to us. Your journey has been one that I think the world needs to know. You might be content, because we came through a humble line of individuals, and we've been taught humility is the way.
Definitely.
And we definitely remain humble. But I believe that there's a benefit in you sharing with the world, like, hey, this is what I've been through.
Yeah.
This is how I made it. This is how you can make it.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of surfacing around a little bit.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit of your journey. Who is Pastor Phil? What is your journey? Because your journey in ministry is absolutely phenomenal. Your passion, your compassion, and then your drive. Tell us, where does that come from? Who is Pastor Phil?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's so important, one of the things that you and I were talking about is just the importance for people to have hope, especially in the times that we're living in. I feel like right now there is such a veneer of perfection on social media, this filtered lives that we live in the public. And oftentimes that can, in some sense, be discouraging, where we see people seem to have this perfect marriage, this perfect ministry, this perfect life, and we don't see the story. We don't see the bumps along the way. And so I think it's important for us to be able to share the journey. As you said, is just as important as the arrival, quote unquote. And, Queens, New York, first person in my family born in the U.S., immigrant parents from Trinidad, raised in a very tough urban environment, and just really had no hope in that environment. You hear things like teachers look you in your face and tell you you're never going to amount to anything, nothing good is going to come out of you, and legal trouble, in and out of prison, drug dealing, really no sense of future. And my parents were prayer warriors, man. They just believed. Doctors told my mother she would never have children, and so she really fasted and prayed. God gave her a son, and so my mother had hope for me that I did not have for myself, and they got me out of New York at the age of 18, and I ended up in the South, and just continued a wayward life for some time after that. 24 years of age, found Christ when I was suicidal in a bathroom. Crying out to God, not realizing that he really existed. And God met me in that bathroom, transformed my heart. My salvation experience was over a toilet. No choir, no Bible, and God really met me there. And that was my journey into faith. And God called me to the pastorate. Felt insecure, felt unworthy. Ran from that for 4 years, finally surrendered, and took up that mantle to pastor the church that God called me to pastor now. And even that has not been an easy journey. I feel like God has blessed my wife and I with a certain measure of success in ministry, but that's been a rough mountain of successes and challenges, and wins and losses.
For sure.
Wins and losses, and even in that, with the success we have had, and the millennials that we're reaching and the lives we're changing, I feel like even in my pastoral ministry, I feel like it has exposed all of my greatest insecurities, my greatest weaknesses, and it's really shown me the need for us to depend on God. And so I'm thankful for where I am, and I'm thankful for where I am going. But certainly that journey has not been easy. And I think that story, sometimes we don't tell. It's a story that gives people hope.
Yes.
It gives people hope. I mean, people see a man like you, successful, a family, a husband, your own show, but you also came from a tough urban environment, as I did.
Yes.
And I think it's that journey, when people hear, we fell, got back up, got in this rut, got back up. I think that's the thing that really brings hope. And I feel like we need hope.
We need hope.
Right now.
We need hope. And I think not only do we need hope, Pastor Phil, I think that we need to let others know that hope didn't come easy.
Did not, yeah.
Hope didn't come easy. One thing that I know you don't know, just as of late, these last maybe 2 years, I've been talking about a little bit more, but my biological mother was addicted to drugs. She had me at 15.
Wow.
She was in and out of foster care herself.
Wow.
Her mother was an alcoholic, abused her a lot.
Wow.
And then my mother dated an alcoholic,
Wow.
got a physical abuser, who then, here am I, Tyrus.
Yeah.
And she had me in a halfway house in the city.
Really?
In Manhattan, Lower Manhattan.
Wow.
Was there 3 months with this teenage mother. And my paternal grandmother came and got me out of the place, right?
Wow, look at God.
So when you're thinking about that story and you're looking at me now, folks don't understand the insecurity and the temptation that could have been there to go any direction possible.
Yeah.
But somehow the Lord gives us a good foundation, parents.
Definitely.
You had your natural parents. I had my grandmother who became everything for me to make sure that I could lay out the path. And I've had some hard knocks too, man. I had some hard knocks, and right there in the neighborhood, going to the local school,
Yeah.
getting in trouble, meet me at 3 o'clock on the playground, on the basketball court.
I know that life. I know that life. But you know, that's why it's so important, you know, for us to not boast in our success.
Come on.
You know,
Come on.
I feel that one thing I say to my church all the time, you know, is that we really can't boast in our success. We can't boast on the fact, this great platform that God has given you, because it's by His grace.
It's Him.
You know,
Yes.
it's by His grace. When I look over my shoulder, I can track the amount of times I could not have been here. You know, the stray bullets that grazed my ear, or the times when, you know, I could be in another place. And so I think it's so important when people hear those stories, man, we look back, we give God glory for what He has done, you know, because He's sovereign, He's good. He had a plan for our lives.
He had a plan for our lives.
Even when we did not know it.
For sure.
And I think it's so important for other people to know that. You know, there's people out there who are in dark places and not realizing that there is a God who has a plan for their life. And it's in that moment when we pivot, when we turn to Him in that moment. I mean, He takes us on a journey of becoming, a journey of purpose. You know, I see my journey, obviously it's been dotted with some successes and challenges, but not so much I look at the material things, but it's a journey of becoming.
Yes.
From what we used to be.
Yes.
To where we are right now.
Yes.
You know, I would never imagine I'd be a husband and a father or
Right.
a pastor. And so
Right.
I look over that journey, and more than the celebration of what God has accomplished tangibly, I am thankful for the journey of who I am becoming. I'm thankful for that I am not where I want to be, but I'm not where I used to be.
Far from it, right?
Yeah, and we're thankful for that.
Far from it.
Yeah.
You're thinking that our audience is very broad, as you could imagine.
Definitely.
Audience is very broad. Folks will watch this that we're not even aware of, but there's a 24-year-old that might get a clip of this, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to be like, wow, how did that dude do this? How did he survive? And you saying, hey, listen, I just turned my life over to the Lord. But it wasn't just turn my life over
Definitely
to the Lord.
not. No.
It's almost like a Jonah cry from the belly of the whale.
It is.
The great fish.
It is. And I would say to that 24-year-old watching me, you know, salvation is just the beginning.
That's good, Pastor.
Sometimes we think salvation is the end, but it's just the beginning. And I think it takes a grit, a tenacity to continue to keep pursuing the Lord through every mountaintop, but even through those valleys. You know, I think about how many times I wanted to quit in various valleys. How many times I lost hope. People think pastors don't get discouraged or go through depression.
Right.
And so I've been through those valleys. So I think it's important that we just keep following the Lord through all of those valleys. I mean, He did not promise us an easy trip, but He did promise us to be with us.
Promised
on
us.
this trip.
Man, Pastor, that's loaded. We're going to go to break really quick when we come back, because we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
The fact that God has promised us to be with us. And I think you and I are both examples of God being with us.
Definitely.
Going for us.
Yeah.
Covering us,
Yeah,
surrounding us.
definitely.
Even when we don't even feel like we deserve it.
That's true.
Even when we feel like it. We're going to have a word from our sponsors, Hinton Cares Foundation. And right after that, I'm going to come back and have some more great conversation with my guest today, Pastor Phillip Mitchell. We're talking about hope and love.
See it on the 6 o'clock news.
I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who contributes to Hinton Cares Foundation. Your donations make it possible to do what we do. We feed so many families that are here that are having a very challenging time, but they can come to a nice, warm Sunday dinner. And you, because of your generosity, that happened for so many great people here at Ronald McDonald House in Durham, North Carolina. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Sunrise lights up another day.
Thank you so much for staying with us. Look, Hinton Cares Foundation is an organization that I began in 2017. My wife and I, we did lose a son to childhood cancer, and we took that grief and we turned it into an effort that can bless so many other families. So what would we do? We provide emotional support by way of care package, by way of support, and by way of providing meals to families that are staying in long-term care facilities. Why don't you check us out at hintoncaresorganization.org and see how you can be a part of that. All right? Once you check that out, I'm sure you'll love what you see there. But look, right back to my guest, Pastor Phil and I, we're talking, having some great conversation about matters of the heart, sharing sharing our journey. But now we're going to take you to the other side of our journey. We're going to talk about some of those efforts that you're involved in, Pastor Phil. I love your community outreach. I've always loved your heart, man.
Yeah.
When I first knew who Pastor Phil was at an altar at a church.
Yeah.
And man, you started out, you walked out, you was like this.
Yeah.
But I mean, it couldn't have been one song in.
Yeah.
And you was on the ground. That's us. We're layered with the love of Christ. We're layered with the grace of Christ. We're layered with the hope of Christ, which drives us to do what we do.
Definitely.
We are the ones who have come through great tribulation.
Definitely.
We've had some really rough starts, but some great victorious moments.
Definitely.
And you do something that I think is absolutely commendable. I know that you don't do it for your own glory. I already know that. The world watching knows that at this point, because that's not who you are.
Mm-hmm.
But you like to blanket and cover the city.
Yes.
You like to provide hope. You like to provide healing.
Yeah.
Tell us more about some of those efforts that you're involved with.
Yeah, I think I just want to touch on something you mentioned about
let's do it, man.
Just the altar. And
Let's do it.
I think what we do at outreach first begins in the heart.
Yes.
It starts with a heart of just humility and gratitude for what God has done for me, and knowing the place that I came from, and what I remember being in Queens and going with my father. We would go down to a local church in Queens on Hollis Avenue, and we would stand in a long line. And we would get to the front of the line. They would hand us a box, and that box had the block cheese.
Block of cheese, man.
The block cheese with the powdered mashed potatoes,
oh my God,
and the
yes.
milk. And I remember
Yes.
doing that with my father, standing on that line and getting that box and thinking, without that, there were many times we would not have ate.
Wow.
We wouldn't have no food. And so I never forgot things like that.
Wow.
And so in my ministry, I founded an organization called Paint the City Green. And we are partnered with some 30, I think now, Atlanta organizations.
Love it.
And we just blanket the city with outreach. It's all based on Jesus' words to us in Matthew chapter 25. His command to us to remember those who are less fortunate,
Yes.
in prison, naked, sick.
Yes.
And so I took that passage seriously, not only in the words of the Lord, but my own experience receiving help from that local church and knowing that if it wasn't for that, there's no food on my table for some nights. And so we partner with these 30 organizations, and we just blanket the city. Man, we feed the homeless, we provide clothes, we clean up the city, we take care of bridges, parks. We donate resources and funds to organizations all across the city. And a lot of that, all of it, is being driven by just this dynamic, radical group of millennials that God has blessed me to shepherd. I love them daily, the people of Victory Church. They are young, but they are passionate. I mean, they're out there in those streets, laying hands on the sick, praying, even during the pandemic. That's the thing.
Wow, I love it.
We did not stop during the pandemic. I mean, all through the pandemic, we've been out there. Masks, gloves, sanitizer, laying hands, giving food, giving hope. I think it's important for us to remember those who are less fortunate. It means something to me to reach back. You and I had a conversation about this, that we oftentimes arrive certain places, but we don't take time to reach back. And so it's important for us to continue doing that. And my prayer is that organization will outgrow me. The culture of outreach is in the DNA of our church. It's in the DNA of our house. And my prayer is that it would outlive me when I'm gone.
It will outlive you. You already know that. It will, because you are laying out the blueprint.
Yeah.
You're not just doing it and letting others watch.
Yeah.
You are involving, you're including others, and you're giving them something to leave to somebody. You know, the oldest millennial this year is going to turn 40.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're going to turn 40 this year.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I believe we can fall into the trap as Gen Xers, and the ones above us, the baby boomers, to label this group, not realizing this group is grown.
They are grown.
This group is grown, and this group has to make their part in the world also.
They do.
And they need us, and we need them.
It's a fact. It's a fact.
I was thinking the other day, like, why does it have to be either or? It has to be both.
It has to be both and. You know, I was sharing this with somebody the other day when, Paul was writing to one of his proteges. He's writing to one of his proteges, and then he was sharing with him about, the church on the islands of Crete, when he was talking to him about the older and the younger being mixed together in community, and how we learn from each other.
Yes.
Sometimes there's a fire that the older learns from the younger.
Yes.
And then there is wisdom that the older imparts
Yes.
to the younger, you know.
Yes.
And so I think about that as Paul's writing to Titus about that. And even with the generation our passion, it's like the generation our passion, they're full of passion. And I just think that passion has to be guided.
That's all.
It has to be guided.
That's all.
They need to have something to live for.
Yes.
And even something to die for.
Yes.
And they have to know what the why is behind what we're doing, you know. So it's not just we're doing church and we're doing Sunday services, but what is the why? What is the motive?
Yes.
And I think that matters. I feel like the generation I shepherd, they're looking for authenticity. They want to know what's real, especially that we're living in this culture that's so veneer, so phony. And it even creates in them this struggle with comparison. Is like, I have access to all these windows of everybody's life on social media.
Yes.
You know, and there's just this silent comparison. Do I measure up? Yes. So I love even in, you know, just the beginning of your show about you not trying to meet somebody else's measure.
No.
You want to be the measure.
No.
And I think it's so important for our generation to know that, because the competition level across social media creates in us this jealousy and this competition, all of that. And we don't know how to admire without desiring. And so I think it's important that for our generation, man, that we steward their passion well.
Steward the passion.
You know, and give them a why to live for. That makes sense.
And I think it's also important, as you mentioned, I wasn't going to say anything, but be in the measure.
Yeah.
Because what happens is sometimes we're trying to follow something that we really should be leading.
Yes.
We're trying to follow. The millennials don't necessarily want to be leaders, but if we are closing our mouths and we are not helping and we're not doing what we're supposed to do, they have no choice but to be leaders. And then we want to rebuke them for taking their role.
This is true.
It's like, no, we can't rebuke. We have to work. We have to lead. And then we have to be the measure. We're not in competition.
Right, we're not in competition.
Right. You know what's interesting? A very authentic moment while here on the show. I've never felt intimidated or insecure by a millennial. It's the people in my same age group that are battling with the millennials.
Me too.
That cause those insecurities.
I agree. And not only battling with them, but always speaking negative of them.
Always.
And talking down. I see oftentimes people in our demographic, our generation, always saying negative things about millennials, how they hate church, this, that, and the third. And I don't find that to be my experience personally. I think they do have challenges, like every generation.
Every generation.
They do have challenges. I think that they have their own challenges, from fatherlessness to unbridled ambition.
Yes.
To radical individualism. They have their challenges, but in that generation, there is a passion. There is a curiosity for spirituality. Yes. And I think that those of us who are older, when we recognize that, instead of condemning that generation, we want to steward them well, lead them well, and guide them well. And that's what we need to do. And I'm looking at my sons. We have children, Gen Zs. And we could crucify them for all the things that they do. But in all honesty, they are the next runners in the race. You and I are carrying a baton of faith.
For sure.
And we got to know how to properly hand that baton off to them.
For sure.
So they got to be properly discipled, properly loved, properly affirmed.
Nice.
Properly affirmed.
Amen. I couldn't agree more.
And then that baton has to be properly handed off to them so they can run that race properly when we're gone.
You know, you said that, properly affirmed.
Yeah.
Even though we were properly affirming them, let's not affirm them to what we like only.
This is true.
Let's affirm them in their craft.
Right.
You know, you saw one of my sons today.
Yeah.
My son is so different than I am. Totally opposite, polar opposite kid. As well he should be. He is his own person.
Yes.
His life experience is way different than mine.
And mine's,
He has both of his parents. I didn't.
Right.
He has this. I didn't. There's things that he has. He should be. And I have to allow him the freedom to be that.
Yeah.
Now, what would be dangerous is if I give him the freedom and don't take him and teach him.
This is true.
And I think that could be where some of our...
No, I think that's so important, because I have teenagers.
Yeah.
And I think, like my wife and I, we want to affirm them, like you said, in who God has made them to be.
Yes.
Not trying to make them a carbon copy of who I am. Like I seen your son out here working on the set and all these things, and he's finding his lane in the things of God. So I think what you said is so critically important, is to affirm them. Like my son is a musician, my daughter's a creative, and I want to affirm them in the gifts and talents that God has given them.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you're doing it. You're doing it. And I think affirming, allowing them to have the freedom to be themselves.
Yeah.
giving them some parameters to work with.
Definitely.
Taking them alongside and showing. I think, Pastor Phil, I don't think I can say this enough, that we're just not showing.
Yeah, we're not showing.
We're not showing. When someone asks, oh, how do you do this? Well, let me show you how I did this.
Yeah.
How did you do this with your family? Yeah, I worked 3 jobs at one time in my life.
Yes.
I really did.
That was my season.
I worked 3 jobs, and there are times now when I have to do extra stuff, and it's not just I woke up and said, oh, this is how it happens.
Right.
No, I've made sacrifices. This is the sacrifice I've made.
Mm-hmm.
This is how I did it.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I did it.
Right.
And then the drive behind it, and your whole community organization, that really has stirred up something to me, because not only you are a pastor, not only are you doing ministry and doing ministry well. Why do I know you're doing ministry well? Because you can see the effects of your ministry. Lives are being changed. The people that I see that surround you look nothing like me, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Because I don't need more church people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to see more change people.
Yeah.
So we got enough church people in the world.
Yeah.
And that shows me that you're effective in ministry.
Yeah.
But then when you're bridging that gap, man, and you're going into those nonprofits, and you are extending the olive branch, saying, hey, look, we want peace. We want to work together. We want to, as the young people say, we want to collab.
Building bridges.
You want to build a bridge?
Yeah.
I think that is amazing. And that, I feel like this authentic conversation was necessary for people to see, hey, yeah, you can be in church, you can have ministry, and you can be you.
Yeah.
Be you, be effective. Don't try to be anything different. I can't be Pastor Phil by a long shot.
Right.
You know, I don't have that tough walk.
We got to be the best version.
I got to be the
God has
best
called us to
version
be.
of me.
Right.
And love me
And love you.
without insecurity. And that takes a lot of work.
It does. And I think it takes a lot of work in the generation that we live in.
For sure.
Because I think the proliferation of social media has made it easy for us to have comparisons. And I think it's so important. One of the things my mentors and my pastor tell me is that we have to admire without desire. We have to admire without desire. And we have to be content in who God has called us to be.
Be content.
Yeah, we have to be content in who God has called us to be and know what our lane is. Know who God has called us to reach, what he's called us to do, what our assignment is, whether that's inside the 4 walls, outside the 4 walls, marketplace, ministry,
Right.
all of that is critically important.
For sure.
Knowing that who we are in Christ, where he has placed us to be, and being as effective as we can be for Christ in whatever industry, area, arena he has placed us in. And that is critically important.
Man, Pastor Phil, you've got it. You've got it, man. You've got your hand on how to build bridges.
And so do you, brother.
You've got it. Yeah, and I think we feed off of each other, to be honest.
Yeah,
we feed
definitely.
off of each other because we know what it's like.
Yep.
We know the journey. We know the struggle.
Yeah, it's
we
real.
know the mental struggle,
It's real.
the emotional struggle,
It's real.
but we also know the victory. That victory, man, that victory church is all right with me.
Yeah.
We know the victory the victory after the struggle. Pastor Phil, I have thoroughly enjoyed my time.
Me too.
It's too bad that the folks can't get the green room talk, but we'll see what we can do for them later. But thank you so much for agreeing to be with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's been my pleasure. Listen, friends, thank you for joining us. Until next time, what I want you to do is to continue building bridges. You've heard a heart-to-heart with Pastor Phillip Mitchell and myself. And until next time, let's build that bridge.